This can be a pretty tough passage, but it goes to show you that even with these double passages, these old-timey passages, the strategies don't really change. A lot of people ask me what they should do for this specific type of passage, but I don't really have an answer for that. Just keep doing what you're doing. We should always try to shift our focus from the passage, which we're unlikely to understand completely, to the answer choices so that we can narrow our focus to certain words. So when we have a double question like this, what we want to make sure that we do is follow the QLC method so that we stay organized, right? So we need to know first and foremost, what do we care about in the question? What are we being told to care about? We don't care about everything when we're reading. We only care about what we're being asked about. And in this case, the question is very clear. Beecher makes which point about the status of women relative to that of men? So it's definitely about women, but status of women relative to that of men. There's some sort of comparative aspect here. So the comparison is going to be important when I come down to the next part of the QLC method, the line references, and I start sorting through these choices. I really want to make sure I'm getting some sort of comparison between men and women. So let's take a look. 6 to 10. It says, choice A, that's right here. But while woman holds a subordinate relation in society to the other sex being men, it is not because it was designed that her duties or her influence should be any less the important or all-pervading. So subordinate is a tough word, but we have other words that help us out with that. Less important, and so at the very least, we know that they're talking about the importance of men and women, and specifically the duties of men and women. So, okay, that seems comparative. So let's talk about important duties. There we go. Very simple way to summarize what we just read. 13 to 14. Right here. A man may act on society by the collision of intellect in public debate. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, well, that's only about men. So that's no good, right? We need the comparison of men and women. So that doesn't seem to work. 16 to 18. Choice C. So that is here. He may coerce by the combination of public sentiment. He may drive by physical force, and he does not outstep the boundaries of his sphere. So, look, I'm going to be honest. I barely understand what this is saying. But I don't care because I know what it's not saying. It's not saying anything about women. It's only talking about men. And so this is a really good way of kind of dealing with this issue of difficult passages, is we're not just reading it and trying to understand it. We're reading it for a purpose, looking for an idea. And usually the idea that we're looking for is much easier to understand than all of the other ideas that are in the lines, right? So we only care about this one idea, and it's not there in 16 to 18. So now 41 to 46 is a big jump. That's unusual, but it can happen, I guess. So let's take a look right here. But whatever in any measure throws a woman into the attitude of a combatant, either for herself or others, whatever binds her in a party conflict, whatever obliges her in any way to exert coercive influences, throws her out of her appropriate sphere. So this seems to be very heavy on women and not on men. However, I guess when they talk about appropriate sphere, there might be some kind of like the women's sphere, the men's sphere, and maybe that's part of this. I really don't know. So I wouldn't eliminate this here. It's certainly a little bit better than B and C, but I don't understand it really that well. And so I would leave it because I don't want to get rid of something that I don't understand because it might mean what it's supposed to mean. But that's not our job here. Our job in number 12 in these evidence questions is not to necessarily get down to one answer right away. There are very often going to be multiple answers that could be correct, because now our job then is to see which of them supports a choice in question 11 in the first part. So these are the choices. And so now we're going to use these choices to better understand any of the parts of the lines that we didn't understand before. This is all related, all different ways of kind of slowly getting used to what we're reading and understanding it better. We don't need to understand everything perfectly immediately. If you try to do that, you will fail and get frustrated. You're better off just trusting it'll all work itself out. So let's take a look at choice A. Women depend on men for their safety and security, but men are largely independent of women. So dependence and independence. Okay, I don't remember them really talking about that. In this line reference, I barely understand. I don't see anything about dependence. There's a combatant. That's not the same thing. So nothing but dependence there. We got rid of B and C. But let's look at A. While woman holds a subordinate relation in society to the other sex, maybe that's about dependence, it is not because it was designed that her duties or her influence should be any less important or all-pervading. So, I don't know, maybe dependence is there. I'm going to do as a little green check mark, but I'm not confident. But still, I don't really remember them talking specifically about safety and security. Being subordinate is a very general idea, but specifically talking about safety and security, I'm not seeing that, so that's not a good sign. Let's keep going. Maybe there'll be nothing better and we'll have to pick A, but it's not jumping out as being right. B, women are inferior to men, but women play a role as significant as that played by men. Well, inferior is a very good synonym for subordinate, right? But women play a role, have duties that are significant, as significant as that played by men. Well, let's go back to that line reference here, because they're talking about duty here. While woman holds a subordinate relation, so I guess subordinate means inferior, right? It means you're subject to someone else. In society to the other sex, is not because it was designed that her duties or her influence should be any less important or all-pervading. So maybe all-pervading is difficult, but important, we know that word, right? They're saying that her influence should not be any less important, meaning it's just as important as men. So this is like a much, much better fit. Now, we should still look at C and D, but there's a lot of stuff here that just kind of matches up as significant, right? All these little ideas can be broken down. If we narrow our focus, we can see these ideas for what they are, little individual choices that we have to make. And these little individual choices match with specific words in the lines. That's a really good sign. Now let's look at C. Women have fewer rights than men do, but women also have fewer responsibilities. Well, the fewer rights thing is not talked about. But more importantly, fewer responsibilities. No, when it talks about duty and it talks about responsibility, it's saying it's just as significant as men. It's not making one better or worse. It's, in that respect, it's saying that they're equal. So that's not correct. Women are superior to men, well, right there, but tradition requires women to obey men. I mean, that may be true, but it is not certainly said in these lines. So there you go. B is definitely the answer, and it matches with line reference A. So did we ever figure out what line reference D was talking about? No, but I'm that confident with the match that I don't really care. And that is another thing you have to get comfortable with these difficult passages, is sometimes you're going to leave stuff on the table that you're just unsure of. And that's okay. You're allowed to not know certain things, but what you do know is that you found a match that works. So be okay with uncertainty, and you'll be able to move through these difficult passages much more confidently. Ironically, you will be much more confident because you'll know when you have things that match, and you'll be able to eliminate things that don't, and your guesses will be, certainly much more likely to be right than if you're just kind of blindly feeling your way through these hard words. So use the process, and a lot of the stuff will kind of reveal itself as you go. That's what we want. That's how we get these answers.